Thank you so much, Theresa. Take it away. Appreciate it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Theresa Chandler, and I'm a Deputy City Manager with the City of Long Beach. And I am honored to be here today for our My Brother's Keeper Long Beach Promising Practices for Serving Black Youth and Emerging Adults here in the city. We have a phenomenal panel. We're going to be kicking off with our Vice Mayor, Rex Richardson, today. And we have quite a big panel and a lot of questions we want to cover. So I'm going to jump right in to introducing our Vice Mayor. He's responsible, and in the words of Reverend Woods, I'm going to just pass that on to him. He's responsible for the new energy for working with youth here in the city. And Rex has really been a champion for our youth work. He has brought forth the original motion for our youth strategic plan. And he's also has helped a few years back, helped to elevate the My Brother's Keeper Long Beach initiative here in Long Beach as well. And so we're really honored for him to be here with us this afternoon. So I'm going to pass it over to Vice Mayor, and then we'll move on to the rest of our panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Theresa, for the introduction. It's an honor to be here with all of you to talk about this incredible moment we're in here in the city of Long Beach, prioritizing the interests and the lives of boys and young men of color here in our community. Many times we sort of focus on boys and young men of color when we talk about the problems of our community. We focus on boys and young men of color and historically as if they are the problem, and focus on how we fix. If we could just fix those boys and young men, then we fix the problem. But this moment we're in is about inverting that. It should be focused on not how do we fix the boy, but how do we fix the systems that produce the development, the environment that develops these boys and young men of color. The moment we're in really calls on us to think about the way that we frame and value the humanity of boys and young men of color, their asset that they bring to our community. And that means as a city, we're taking steps to begin to support trauma-informed practices in all of our departments that deal with youth and braid the ways in which these practices and systems work in order to have a quality continuum to make sure that boys and young men of color have an opportunity to succeed. It's really a change in the way of thinking. Rather than flooding the community with statistics or data, but rather flooding our communities with schools and resources and libraries and the things that help create an environment for youth development. So I want to get started by opening this up and help us add a little bit of background and context. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm here to bring just some opening remarks today at today's My Brother's Keeper Town Hall, and it's good to take a step back and look at where we've come and how we've arrived here today. So a lot of the conversation it's been conversations on youth development for many years in our city, but I'd say the most recent iteration started probably around 2015. President Barack Obama was in office. And Trayvon Martin, we had the unfortunate situation in Florida with the death of Trayvon Martin. And President Obama said, if I had a son, he would look just like Trayvon Martin. And with that, he launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative and called a challenge on local communities to make a deeper commitment to changing the systems in the ways in which we develop and provide opportunities and scaffolding and support for boys and young men of color. Long Beach was one of the first communities to adopt the My Brother's Keeper challenge, and we jumped all the way in. We developed a My Brother's Keeper plan that really focused on cradle to career development, full life course development for boys and young men of color. And these were in strategic alignment with our violence prevention plan in the city. And that became the foundation for a lot of the work that we've been engaged in now. A few years later, we made a motion to begin, and this was brought forward by the Invest in Youth Coalition, to begin the process of thinking about a youth strategic plan and speaking to the community about Long Beach and all of the assets we have to be better organized to help support our youth. And so we went through the process of doing community outreach, working with youth, working with the Best in Youth Coalition and youth ambassadors to shape this plan. In 2020, Long Beach was confronted with a number of crises on multiple fronts. A global pandemic, an economic crisis that impacted families, and a racial emergency, unrest that really brought the question to the forefront of every city that says, now is the time. We have an urgent mandate in front of us to redesign our systems and fully commit to equity. And as a part of that, we committed to accelerating our work on youth development, establishing an Office of Youth Development, and structurally funding that office. And today, this event today is being put forward by the Office of Youth Development. So we're proud that a lot of these things have come forward today and really help provide the support and scaffolding to do what we have to do today. Let's have the next slide. And so our youth strategic plan is our roadmap. If you think about the Office of Youth Development, that's your vehicle for change. But your roadmap is your youth strategic plan, really centered on 6 goals that are in alignment with all of the equity work we're doing and the violence prevention work we're doing and the racial equity reconciliation framework. And so goal 1 is youth development. Goal 2, focus on the health, physical, mental, and emotional wellness of our community, our youth. Part 3, planning for our future. We have great amenities and assets and resources in our community, from Long Beach City College, Long Beach State, economic opportunities. But the question is asked, are we doing as much as we can to make sure we have a world-class continuum and system for our youth? 4, community care. These are the support, the community constructs, the nonprofit organizations, the youth-serving, youth-based groups, the after-school programs, all of the community infrastructure in place to make sure that these are all our community's youth and we all play a part in the development of these youth. Goal 5 is housing. You can't talk about stability with youth without talking about housing stability. The more often, I went to 14 public schools across 5 states. I know it's like to be housing insecure. It wasn't until, I was able to set roots right here in Long Beach that my own development was able to take off. And so the more insecure housing is, the less likely it is in the later in life youth, it takes for youth to actually get on the right track in life. And then finally, I'll say transportation. Transportation equity is incredibly important. Our youth, we used to take this thing when I was a kid called the 210, the 2 feet, 10 toes. That's how we got around as a kid. Well, I'll tell you, when you have barriers to transportation, it's hard to move around. Your mobility is arrested. It's a concept called arrested mobility. When you can build a complete street, you can make sure it has sidewalks and crosswalks. But if you as a Black man cannot walk down that street is incomplete. So arrested mobility means that we have to think about the systems and the structures and the laws that prevent boys and young men of color from fully experiencing their lives and moving. And so we have to place a lens of equity and youth and race on even our transportation systems. And so those are just some of the, and I think we're done with this presentation. I just wanted to help set some context and some backgrounds for today's conversation. I want to thank all the partners that are here today and everybody's part of this continuum. Long Beach City College, Ronnie's House, Earth Lodge Center for Transformation, Success and Challenges. These are folks that are doing incredible work right here in our Long Beach community in partnership with our Office of Youth Development to make sure that we're doing the things we need to do. And it's a much broader continuum as well. But I think it's important to recognize the partners who are with us today. And that said, thank you so much for the time. It's an honor to be here for this launch. And I want to hand it back to our Deputy City Manager, who's over the Office of Equity, who's championing our youth development, a future leader in this city, Theresa Chandler.
Oh, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you so much for being here. That was the perfect opening to today's panel. And I guess I didn't fully introduce myself. So I get to sit in the city manager's office with an amazing team. The Office of Equity moved over this past October because of the Racial Equity and Reconciliation Initiative. They moved from the health department under me in the city manager's office. I also get to provide support for our homeless services department and all the work with homeless services across the city, our violence prevention work, and our youth development work as well. So I'm very honored to be where I am today. And I just want to share something that I don't want to be a downer today, but something came to me this morning. I've been doing violence prevention work and youth development work for a very, very long time, my whole career. There was a young man that I worked with when I worked in Watts at the Children's Institute before I came to the city. And he was a young man that grew up in the foster care system. We circled him with, mental health support and housing and all the different supports we can offer. And he had gone to college and was a security guard and moving on from transitional housing to permanent housing and all these things that we were putting in place within the system. And I found out that he was killed this morning. And his name was Joshua Brown, amazing young man who we circled as much as we could. And I'm sorry to get choked up, but it's been on my heart all day because I was, asked to moderate today. And it was really telling because of the topic and, focusing on our young men of color is so important. I can't even stress, we all know, it's like preaching to the choir, all of you that are here, but the importance of creating those systems, strengthening our systems, making sure that we're responsible as a community to keep each other alive and successful and moving forward in life. And so I want to say his name out loud, Joshua Brown, because he's an incredible young man who touched my heart. And I feel honored that I can still stand in this work. And I know that we're all moving this work forward together. So again, thank you, Vice Mayor, for being here. And so with that, I would like to introduce our phenomenal panel. I'm going to move to my notes so I make sure I get to folks' bios. I'm going to just briefly go through people's bios so you know who are with us today. Cheyenne Wilkins from Earth Lodge Center for Transformation. Thank you for being with us today. She's a graduate from Los Angeles County High School of the Arts. She is co-creator of a program called Project Bloom, and she hopes to spread experiences that she has received thanks to the Girls' Rites of Passage founded by the Earth Lodge Center of Transformation. As she works to complete this goal, she also trains to be an actor as well as a film writer. Looking forward to hearing more from you, Cheyenne, today. Elijah Sims from Long Beach City College. As the matriculation coordinator, Elijah is responsible for leading a cross-functional team of faculty, staff, and managers under the leadership of the Dean of Student of Equity. His team has three primary objectives: to successfully onboard new students to the college, to support students through their first academic year of school, and to increase graduation by working strategically across departments. His personal goal is to help students achieve professional success and personal fulfillment through equity-centered policy, streamlined and coherent systems, informed decision-making, and efficient planning. Eric Becerra, I'm sorry, I can't roll my R's in my pronunciation. But Eric is a director of special projects at Long Beach City College. He's a first-generation doctoral student with over 15 years of experience working in multiple capacities within the education sector. He's committed to serving low-income, traditionally disadvantaged student populations with an emphasis on increasing access, equity, and success in higher education. He's an innovative thinker with a passion for social justice, community empowerment, and cultural affirmation. Paula Woods from Success and Challenges. She is the executive director of Success and Challenges, Inc., a local nonprofit agency in Long Beach that provides community-based programs for children and adults in the areas of tutorial services, after-school activities, housing and employment referral services, job training, and a summer literacy program known as the Freedom School. She has over 30 years of experience working with families and youth of all ages, with agencies like Long Beach YWCA, the Children's Home Society of Long Beach, and the list goes on. She has a BA degree in sociology from San Jose State, and she's completed graduate work at the master's level for marriage and family counseling. Shirin Senegal is the executive director of Ronnie's House, a nonprofit located in Long Beach with a mission of achieving social and economic equity through entrepreneurship, homeownership, youth leadership programming, technology, and reentry work. Ronnie's House was established to carry on the work of Ronnie Senegal, Shirin's husband, who lost his life to gun violence in 2016. We're grateful to have you here. Reverend Dr. Aussie Leon Wood Jr. Reverend Wood has dedicated much of his life and career to serving his family and assisting others in their pursuits of a richer and better life. In 2012, he achieved his lifelong dream of completing a doctoral degree in educational studies at Claremont Graduate University. Over the past 50 years, Dr. Wood has served the communities of Southern California as an educator, community activist, social program provider, college chaplain, and church pastor. And Though he's retired, he's still actively involved in the Long Beach community where he resides and serves as president of the board of directors of Success and Challenges. So as you can see, we have a loaded panel today. So I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to introduce themselves. And our first question today actually asks that you provide an overview of your agency's programs and services. What strategies or interventions are you using to effectively reach and serve Black youth and emerging adults? So I will open it up to who would ever like to go first.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler. I guess I'll jump in.
Thank you.
So my name is Elijah Sams. I'm really happy to be here on the panel. I'm with my brother, who's also here with me, Eric Becerra. He's the director of special projects at LBCC. I'm going to share the things that we're doing, but I just feel like I would be remiss not to acknowledge that we wouldn't be able to do any of these things if we didn't have the strong leadership from Board President Intuck, Interim President Dr. Munoz, Interim Vice President Dr. Corral, and then we have an awesome Dean of Student Equity, and her name is Sonia De La Torre. They're not here with us, so I wanted to shout them out because this is really their work that they lead. So having said all of that, we have equity-centered programming that celebrates the identities of all of our students. We just came out of Black Heritage Month, which is during the month of Black History Month, where we had some really awesome programming throughout that month. We have emergency aid applications for students in order to identify and provide financial support so that students can continue during the pandemic to pursue their academic goals. We have Chromebook loans, and then we also have some Chromebook giveaways. If we can, we prefer to give them away. So we're always happy to accept the donations for that. And the city of Long Beach has been really generous helping us to do that at various points, private and public donors. And then basic needs support, our students who are food insecure or housing insecure are getting referrals to agencies, but also we have a food pantry for our students, and we're doing cooking demos, and we're giving students bags of ingredients that include what was in the cooking demo, really just trying to promote healthy living for our students as well. And that's a good segue for the mental health counseling. We're offering for our students the academic counseling. Now I'm gonna turn it over to Eric so he can talk a little bit about the learning communities and programs.
Thank you so much for that, Elijah. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the biggest things as students transition to higher education is dealing with just that, the transition, right? So we try to set up mechanisms to make that a little bit easier. First year experience programming that Elijah mentioned is part of that. But we also have learning communities. So there are certain groups of students who will be taking classes as a cohort in block schedules to really build that community within you know, those classrooms and feel like they belong at the college. I could tell you as a doctoral student, the last few years that, you know, I'm nearly 40, and when I set foot back on a college campus, all that imposter syndrome as a man of color and stereotype threat came right back. So we try to be very intentional to combat that up front, right? So part of that is also the Umoja program. We also have Amend, and Amend Club. Amend stands for African American Male Education Network and Development. And most recently in MSI, so I'm actually here as part of the residency for my third year doctoral program at Harvard University. And that is my project to launch a male success initiative. And a couple of people have spoken to these things. We really want to do what Dr. J. Luke Wood and Dr. Harris III call address the 5 domains, right, of male achievement. So it's really looking at students ecosystemically. It's not just academic prowess, right, that is necessary to succeed. We look at the non-cognitive domain, the social domain, and most importantly, I think the Vice Mayor spoke to this, the institutional changes that need to happen, right? So rather than viewing our role as capacitating and equipping students to navigate the systems that exist today, we do that as well because of the fierce urgency of now. You know, they're in classrooms now, but we're also looking at how do we change the system to better fit the needs of our students, right? So becoming a student-ready college is one of our biggest goals as well. So yeah, and shout out to all those people, Sonia de la Torre, who's the Dean of Equity, we call her the Queen of Equity. None of this would be possible without the vision and the mindset of those individuals that provide the authorizing environment for us to really move this work forward. Thank you.
And this is also about the partnership, the Long Beach College Promise partnership with the city, with Long Beach Unified, with LBCC, with the port. Those have all been really awesome enhancements that have allowed us to bring more programming to our students. And I see Lionel's here. He's one of our partners, and we just did the Male Summit event. So
Great, thank you. I see Shireen's hand is up. Go ahead, Shireen.
Yeah, you know, Theresa made Joshua rest in paradise. I am glad that you acknowledged, because I think that's something that we don't do is acknowledge enough. And 48% of homicides are young Black men, and young Black men are only 13% of the population. All the work that all of us should be doing should be leading to the solutions on how we save these young Black men and women. We have to realize that investing in our youth is priceless. We shouldn't be fighting at city council meetings for dollars, and we shouldn't be competing against lobbyists. These are our young people. And where everything develops from here, our economy, the crime, everything is dependent on those tools that we give them. My husband, Ronnie, was that foster care child, went through incarceration, and even after he turned his life around, he was victimized by gun violence, because there is so much pain and trauma in our communities. And there's so much inequity that we need to work on unraveling as a village. I think that's probably the thing that stands out to me more than anything, is that we have to address the solution as a village. We have to invest in workforce, which is what, you know, I want to focus more on what the work around youth that we're doing more than anything right now. And that is mental health, early finance, entrepreneurship, life skills, mentorship. We have to be intentional. We cannot be transactional with our youth. And oftentimes that's what we're doing when we put out a program. And I apologize for the emotions, but you know, it is what it is at this point. We have to be intentional as we're doing this work and realize that it's not about checking off a box that we reached 80% Black youth, 30% Hispanic youth. What did we reach them with? Are we following them all the way through? Are we making sure that their families are getting the support that they're getting, because they're struggling for a reason? And so I just really wanted to say that, you know, Ronnie's House for Us is born out of my husband's pain, the inequity that he faced. And, you know, I just pray that as a community, we can really stay focused on investing in this work, because now more than ever, the gun violence we're seeing and the poverty we're seeing, it's the result of our inequity, and it's looking at us and the inequities we just saw with COVID. So I really do appreciate Councilman Vice Mayor Richardson's dedication to youth. He's been a good partner, and he has pushed for funding, and he has recognized the importance of it. And honestly, city staff as well, who have really stepped up. So I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen. Paula.
Right. Trying to make sure I'm unmuted here. Good afternoon. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Paula Wood, and I have the pleasure of being the Executive Director of Successive Challenges. We've been around a long time working largely with youth and families. And our focus has really been around education and dealing with things like homework assistance and tutoring and mentoring, some of our traditional programs that go on with youth. But we're really now seeing the pandemic, and we move to a kind of a virtual format with everything that we do, whether it's a workshop where we're trying to introduce some new educational materials, whether it's a panel, whether it's a guest speaker that we bring in, a virtual field trip, whatever it might look like. We're trying to make sure that we are identifying what the needs are, not just for the youth, but for that entire family, and that we're working with the family as a unit. It's important, particularly as we move forward as a city and as each individual agency, that we are aware of what is going on with a family that a youth is a part of and what that family needs, what that family looks like. You know, it may not be the traditional mother and father that many of us were used to. It may be a single mom, a single dad. It may be foster parents. It may be grandparents. It may be an aunt and uncle that has gotten guardianship of all of a sudden of that youth. So those things also need to play into how we work with that family unit. Trauma is certainly an important issue, and that needs to address. And that looks so different in so many ways in many different families, you know, whether they're dealing with housing issues, food insecurities, unemployment, a lack of direction, just a sense of knowing where they want to go. I had the pleasure of working recently with Ronnie's House on the youth grant that we got through the CARES Act for the city of Long Beach. And one of the exciting things was the youth that were somewhat centered and somewhat had an idea of where they wanted to go, and wanting to share that and being able to take a look at the materials that were presented and taking a direction. And then we still have some youth who need some more assistance, who need some guidance, who need some opportunities to see more examples of what's available out there, to see more examples of what people are doing in this world in terms of work, so that they make better choices. So I'm looking forward for the opportunity as we able to maybe expand additional funding for programs like this, that we can continue the work. There's so many agencies and organizations here in the city of Long Beach that should be made accessible to our youth so that they can know about opportunities and know about careers and know about programs that they can participate in that will be able to expand their opportunities. So I'm grateful to be here, and I look forward to further conversations.
Thank you. Reverend Woods, you're up.
Yeah, I'll just pitch in with Paula. The one thing that I've noticed though, I've been working, I guess, in programs like this for about 30, 40 years. And we have two different groups, and usually one group gets the attention, but there's a group that gets no attention at all. And that's the ones that you don't see at the schools, the ones that are not on the campuses, the ones that are out at night. And I've been working with a group of men called the Men of the Covenant to try to reach those young men who don't get attention at the colleges because they never reach a college. There's a second population of young men in this city of Long Beach that equal in number the ones that you see at the college and in other programs, who will be in prison shortly or do something about it. We have to go out in the community and touch them and their parents or their parent. Sometimes we have to go also and prepare the father who's coming out to come home and to see his children. So we have a lot of work to do on that I call the untouchables. And we have to really get in there with them and help change their lives. Attention to either one. We have to do it on an equal fashion with the same kind of care and love that we have to make this thing work.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Cheyenne.
Hello, I'm so excited. Well, I'm from the Earth Lodge Center of Transformation, and I really just want to highlight a word that Sharon said, which was village. It takes a village, you know, and over at the Earth Lodge of Transformation, we really focus on creating that village and creating that tribe. So I'm going to talk about two specific programs that we have here. And one is going to be the Girls' Rites of Passage, which is focused on Black children, you know, and what we do over there, the different strategies we use, one would be creating, you know, that kinship, you know, a home away from home, you know, so that they can feel safe and secure as they talk about what they need to. And another one is helping through Mother Nature address and resolve generational trauma, and to kind of unearth that so that, you know, going on, there's no blocks, you know, for their future and for, you know, how they're able to receive and to learn, you know, there's nothing blocking them from wanting to succeed. And we also have a program that I started that I was the co-founder of called Project Bloom. And I started this project because I realized that suicide was becoming a topic of interest at high rates, and that, you know, it was kind of losing its edge, and it's, you know, like it was kind of becoming more accepted, especially into youth. And so I created this for the older population, for like 15 to 20. And so there we really just we use discussion, you know, to provoke something where we use discussion so that we can think for ourselves, really, because as a youth of myself, I realized that, you know, I like to be taught, but I also like to formulate my own opinions and my own path. I want to feel like I'm understanding. And I really appreciate through this program that it's student-led, it's youth-led. So it's kind of like we're directing ourselves. And so those are just two of the programs that we have here at the Earth Lodge of Transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to move into our next question. So what strategies do you recommend we implement in partnership with the school district and post-secondary institutions to better support young Black people in reaching their academic and personal goals? So I will leave it open for who would like to speak first. And we won't go through every speaker for all the questions just because of our limited time, but I want to hear from y'all. So Shireen, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. I would love to see, there was a study done with Jordan a couple of years ago, and I want to say maybe Epic might have done this survey. And the number one thing the teens wanted to see was entrepreneurship support. And that also resonated with our current leadership program. 1 and 2 was around career development and entrepreneurship, because the truth is one of the key pillars of wealth building in the Black community is entrepreneurship, right? It's buying a home, it's entrepreneurship, it's credit, there's key pillars. And the younger that we can get our youth involved in entrepreneurship, I would love to see a business accelerator on site at Jordan High School that's supported by economic development, that's supported by local nonprofits. And we can work with the local developers, whether that's opening up retail stores, whether the youth are creating service-based entrepreneurship. The other thing I would like to see is, I think we have a gold mine in Pacific Gateway and we're not utilizing it as best as we can. After our recent leadership program, we referred about 5 of our 30 youth right away to Pacific Gateway for workforce development. I think it would be great to see sort of workforce days at the schools where workforce can go into Jordan, a set, once a week, once a month, whatever that looks like. I do believe that Councilman or Vice Mayor Richardson is working on adding workforce into Houghton Park, I'm hoping. And I know that that's something that he's very diligent about is the expansion of workforce. So I would like to see more relationships developing between the schools, the local businesses, and city government. I think that we're missing out on the incredible resources we have in community, right? Incredible mentors and business owners that can help sort of incubate our youth and support our youth. I would like to see that. I would also like to see more work around mental health with the school. I do have concerns around the accessibility, like for example, of cannabis and youth being criminalized for the use of that, since that's sort of more available now. And so I would like to see more mental health and counseling support within our school. And the last thing, I just think that there's so many tools there is, I'd like us to take a look at the system and have the school understand that there are some biases there that we need to unravel, right? Like our young African-American men are suspended at 12 times the rate as Caucasian young men. And that sets them up from school to prison pipeline rather than what the vice mayor was saying to get them to college or careers. And so I would like to see how can the school partner up with some brilliant minds within our own communities that could infuse education around bias, around how do we treat our youth differently, and how do we unpack the inequity that's going on. And actually the last is Black history. That's something that Success and Challenges and I and Paula have really had a lot of conversations around, and she can chime in on this one, is that, you know, our young Black, not just for our Black youth, but for other youth in the school system to really understand Black history, because they are the future policymakers and leaders, and the information that they have at an early age dictates the policy they create and the equity in which they look. And so I think it would be great. And I'm going to pass that to Paula. Go ahead, Paula.
Okay. No, and thank you, Seren. One of the things that we really found that's a great model, can you hear me, of our Freedom School is the fact that it does incorporate so much of the African-American history. And many of our children do not know their own history, as we know. We found that out. So not only is it important for them to learn it and learn it early on, it's to share also, like she said, with the other cultures and races. So we think that that needs to be a part of any program that we're organizing for youth. And I wanted to piggyback on the idea of bringing in businesses. In addition to them getting the entrepreneurial training, it's that mentoring and that matching one-on-one where they would get to work with someone that's in the same business or similar business that they want to go into. So they can find out what works, what doesn't, some of the things that maybe they should avoid. And then overall knowledge of business that they need going in there, how much money you need to start your business. You know, it's great to start a business, but if you're not prepared and you don't know a lot of those things, you could be easily disappointed and back out on the streets, on your feet, so to speak, on the ground, so to speak. So I really want to, especially given the fact that with the pandemic and so many of our small businesses have been affected and had to close, that we encourage this entrepreneurship, but we also bring along the training, the mentors, the history, and all of those components at the same time, so that the young person is well-rounded and has the wealth of information going into whatever they're going to partake of.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Theresa, can I jump in really quick?
Yeah, I was going to pass it on to you, Lionel. This is Lionel. He's going to introduce himself. I'm sorry I didn't get to do a bio from you.
No worries, no worries.
Oh, we lost your sound. I see you're on mute.
Can you hear me
There
now?
you go. Yes, there you go.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I just want to thank the city for really pushing this agenda. This has been a passion of mine for the past 15 years. I'm rocking the My Brother's Keeper shirt. So, you know, been working with you guys for years, and thank you for this. Really, this is a a pivotal time for, for our schools, our community, and the city really to collaborate and unite and really continue to provide these resources. Specifically, I oversee the male leadership academies in our middle schools and high schools, but I'd like to tell the city that beginning next year, we will have also our own Men's Success Initiative. And that was intentional with regards to everything that everyone is speaking about today, because what we are going to begin to build is a pathway between middle school, high school, community college, and Cal State Long Beach. Our classes in our middle schools and high schools encompass ethnic studies. So we get into learning about Black History Month, Latino Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander Month. So, a lot of this people don't know about, but I'm glad that we're here being able to tell the community that that's what we do. Now, we have classes, Male Leadership Academy classes at our Title I middle schools and across our 6 comprehensive high schools. The thing about that is that within a class, we can only take in 35 students, sometimes 40 students, depending on the site. But that doesn't mean we don't serve more students, because there are certain students who can't take our classes because they are trying to meet their A through G requirements, of which is great. I'd like to put this out. Our ethnic studies, male leadership academies are A through G our A through G, our A through G courses, which is great. But sometimes students can't take this class because they're trying to meet other requirements, but they still become a part of what we do within the school, the activities, a lot of the exposures that happen outside of school. So, I just wanted to introduce myself, talk to you guys a little bit about what we're doing at the district, and let you know that we are really headed that way. Now, although the Male Leadership Academy has been in effect in Long Beach Unified for the past 15 years, we are going to grow the support for our men of color. And with this Men's Success Initiative, it's not just going to be the Male Leadership Academy. Now we're going to have 2 additional programs working in conjunction collaboratively together, the Math Collaborative, and a new program that's going to be called Rise Up, which is going to be working with our students that Ms. Wood specifically spoke about. What happens to these kids that are multiple F students? What happens to these kids who have no connection, who do not have a program that they can connect to on the campus? So we are really, I'm jazzed and I'm happy, because I really see us, holding a male summit across the city at the convention center one day that is really, really going to impact not just our students at LBUSD, but across the neighboring cities. With what we're doing in our schools, both at Long Beach Unified, Cal State Long Beach, and Long Beach City, and with the support of the community, of the city and its leadership, we are really headed that way. And I'm just excited to be here. So I just wanted to make sure I let you guys know what we're doing, some of the things that we're doing at the district. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Great. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Elijah, let's go to Elijah and then we'll move on to question 3.
Yeah, so lots of different ways to go with this question, but I wanna focus squarely on the partnership and how we help students from high school transition into college at LBCC, and then ultimately if they choose Cal State Long Beach and other neighboring institutions. So for the first year experience program, we understand that our students are coming from all over Long Beach and surrounding neighborhoods, but for our Black students, we're disaggregating data. We know what communities they're from, what high schools they attended. We ramp up service delivery for those areas, for those schools. We increase our presence. We make sure that our staff is trained and ready to really not just be available, but meet students where they are. Because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I'm a Black male who went to schools in the city of Long Beach, and I didn't have the infrastructure that we have now. There was no partnership. There was no outreach at my high school. In a lot of ways, I got lucky. And what we're trying to do is take the luck out of it. So here's how we here's how we're trying to intentionally do that. We amp up the resources at schools like Jordan and Cabrillo, for example. We recruit more heavily our Black African-American students to attend our summer transition program called the Viking Summer Voyage. We incentivize that with book loan money, and now through the city partnership with the city before COVID started, transportation support for our students of color. And that summer transition program hones in on specifically those academic areas that are likely to stop students from being able to earn their awards and transfer. So math is prominently focused in the Viking Summer Voyage, for example. And then that transition into the first year, we have an entire team of nearly 20 FYE coaches, counselors, a manager, and myself who are really focused on making sure that the students have the right information at the right time. To use a metaphor, I heard a speaker once explain the experience of a student of color almost like you're at an airport in a different country with a language that you don't speak. And there's sort of an energy in the space. People know where they're going. There's lines, right? There's sort of an order to the place, but for all intents and purposes for you, you're not sure what to do and where to go. It doesn't matter if the structure and the infrastructure is there, but there's no clear direction for you. And so what we're doing is trying to make sure that our students don't get caught in an environment that isn't designed to help them know what to do next. Where do I go? What services exist for me? How do I tap into them? And how do I make meaning of how that service allows me to get from where I am now to where I'm trying to go next, which hopefully is economic stability, employment, and a degree. So that's how our partnership functions from the high school level and transitions all the way to our institution in a nutshell.
Can I mention something here?
Absolutely.
The problem starts when they're about 3 to 4 years old, and you just see an enhancement of that. A large number of the students that you're talking about don't match the number of students that are not in the school system, period, that are up and down the streets. There's about 5 or 6 gangs just in North Long Beach alone. And then we look at, say, like North Point, the housing development that has about 2,000 people. The high school students who live in Long Beach there go to school in Paramount. What I'm trying to think that we really need to do is take a scientific approach to this and really put it out and see how, after we identify the problem, what are the steps to really address the problem in a longitudinal study in a very scientific way. Because right now it's sort of like patchwork. Even what we do, we get some success stories, but it's patchwork. Because when you look at the number of men going to prison and women going to prison, the number who are on the streets and the number who are getting shot for being affected.
Thank you for that, Reverend Wiz. It's very, very important points. Okay, I want to continue with this conversation, but I'm going to move us to our next question. We'll kick it off with Eric and then move to Cheyenne, because there is a request to hear from the younger folks on our panel. So let's see, our next question is, many Black youth that completed our Youth Strategic Plan community survey expressed a desire to engage in mentorship activities. What does a citywide mentorship or life coaching program look like to you? So we'll start with Eric and then Cheyenne.
Thank you so much for the invitation to speak on this particular topic. So as we build our Male Success Initiative, we took a lot of, and first I just want to honor everything that was just said about this goes beyond, higher education and the educational system. There's a lot of other ways to impact the futures of Black male students. But we all gotta kind of like get in where we fit in, right? So since we're in that space, that's kind of why we're doing that work. So a lot of the research shows that mentorship is a big part of male success initiatives countrywide. So we were very intentional in doing that as well. But we took it kind of to a little bit a different level following the recommendations of My Brother's Keeper and Mentor National Organization to adopt a model called critical mentoring, right? So it's really designed specifically to serve men of color, and more specifically, Black men of color, right? And the stark difference there is that we're very intentional in the recruitment, vetting, and matching of mentors to proteges. We don't want to use the word mentee because that kind of positions one above the other, right? So these are mentorship relationships are dual. Both people, all people involved are learning and teaching at the same time. And it really focuses on what it looks like to navigate space, academic space, the world in general, as a man of color, right? Because I think for many years, mentorship focused on if we just fix our youth, right? I think this was said earlier, we just help them look a little more presentable, you know, have a firm handshake, look people in the eye as they speak, all of a sudden, all the obstacles disappear, which is not the case. You know, Black men get harassed all the time wearing suits and ties. So we're really talking about how race plays out in our everyday. And the main focus of our MSI, besides providing a space that really sees and hears the students and building a sense of individual identity and also a collective identity, is, well, you know, I like to break it down into 3 pieces. We want to teach our students to see the system, equip them to navigate the system because they're students right now, but also, you know, bolster all their sense of self-efficacy and empowerment to change the system, because that's what's really going to be necessary. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. All these institutions we're talking about were not created for, you know, people of color or by people of color. We're just forced to navigate them in their current iteration. So a lot of institutional change, we do need to flip that script and stop trying to fix students, because if we do that, or youth, by doing that, we're positioning the problem within the students, right? And the problem goes way beyond that. And it implicates our institutions and our systems.
Thank you, Eric. All right, Cheyenne, you're up.
Okay. Well, in mentorship, so the Earth Large of Transformation really values mentorships and partnerships. So what we like to do, and I'm an example of this, is Miss Queen, who was the founder of the Earth Large Center. She was kind of a mentorship for all the girls in the Girls' Rites of Passage, and she'd allow us and help us to experience different unique experiences. Like, I know that's kind of, you know, repetitive, but like, you know, to open ourselves up culturally and to pick and choose, to allow us to pick and choose what we need to do in the future. And so we had the option to pick our mentors, other than her, as we got older, to pick our mentors, to pick our mentor topics, you know, and to really fit, you know. And so as we got older, like for me now, I would consider myself a mentor, as especially dealing with Project Bloom, you know, having the younger generation, I'm now able to help them acknowledge and think about the topics that are happening in the world today. And so kind of, I know with a lot of mentorships, it has to do with, you know, like about a job or, you know, learning how to navigate in the world. And we do that as well, but it really has to do with our wellness, you know, our mentorship and in our can you guys hear me? Okay, a mentorship in our way of thinking and our mental state. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that, you know, the mental health is just so important to touch on, and mentoring folks in how to navigate their wellness and well-being is crucial in the work. And so you can walk people through the steps on getting a job or applying to college or all those things in life. But if our mental health and our mental wellness state is not intact, or, you know, it's going to be tough. There's going to be more challenges. So I thank you for bringing that up. So Shireen, to talk about your incubator work program, share a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, it's more around the mentorship and our approach for mentorship, because it really, for us, it's everything from our teen programs, our reentry, our business navigation programs, everything's based on that. And with our teen program mentorship, we found out what our teens need and then started to connect them with community members, be it the ones that wanted to become nurses, connecting them with nurses in our community. Councilwoman Susie Price is giving an internship to one of our youth that went through our leadership program, and she will be mentoring her. I think it's really important to, as specific agencies, that we create our own sort of mentor reservoir. And then as a city, it would be great to see an initiative around investing in our youth. Some people might have a day to invest, right? Some might have a long-term mentorship around business, around life skills, things like that. And so if we can set up a citywide data system where people can set up to become mentorships that's maybe driven by our nonprofits that are connected to community leaders. And the different mentors can talk about what they have to offer, business mentorship. Some may want to, like Big Brothers, provide football leagues or sports leagues for youth, whatever that looks like. And then we can work with our local partners to do all of the legal checks and balances. I think it would be great to tap into, honestly, our communities. Us alone in the work that we're doing, our community has been a gold mine around mentoring our youth for us. So. And the one quick thing around mentoring is, I think Pacific Gateway, I go back to them again. I think it would be incredible to see if possibly the more of these youth that are being mentored, if we can get them approved through some of the Pacific Gateway programs and to incentivize some of our local businesses, then they can also create job opportunities along with the mentorship.
Great, thank you for sharing. I'm going to move us along to our fourth question. And I think if Ms. Paula Woods would be open to starting us off with this one. Emerging practices are demonstrating the impact and effectiveness of two-generation approaches that combine parent and child interventions to interrupt cycles of poverty. What are some two-generation approaches you would like to see here in Long Beach?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last of what you said. My internet failed. I know you were asking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
So emerging practices are demonstrating the impact and effectiveness of two-generation approaches that combine parent and child interventions to interrupt cycles of poverty. What are some two-generation approaches you would like to see in Long Beach?
I guess in thinking about two-generational groups that I'd like to see in Long Beach, I first want to just say that we need to make sure that we're taking into consideration the various different types of family components that can look like. Before it can be the grandmother and the grandchildren. It can be foster care. It can be a single mom. It could be an older mom that has a child later on and has a surrogate, all different kinds of combinations. So I guess whatever type of programming or citywide approach we'd want to take, it needs to have an opportunity to be able to work with the diverse types of family units and to make sure that those family units are looked at just like any other unit, that they're not set aside as being different, but they are what they are. And that the needs of that family, each is going to be different, and how we approach that family needs to be different. And so I think all those things need to be taken into consideration. To think about all of the different types of families that are out there and what their needs are, and making sure that any programs that we implement have a method or a procedure in place on how to to deal with those families effectively, and how to get them what they need, how to find out what they need, and to provide them with that. So that would be my first thoughts on that.
One of the approaches I would like to bring up that seems to be very tough for both generational families, whether it's, the parent and the young child, is therapy. Communities of color aren't open to therapy. It's not something that we're used to. And that's something that, within our Male Leadership Academy classes, when we do bring in therapists and professionals, and we begin to do that even as a group, you see kids crying, and you see how much trauma there is, not just in the communities, but in our families of color. And if we were to really focus on that approach and try and make that more, more consistent within our, communities of color, specifically our African Americans, as we're speaking right now, then we would see a lot more peace in our life, a lot more, a lot more confidence, a lot more of what our communities really need. So I'd like to bring that up, which is something a lot of folks don't talk about.
And the opportunities for conversations around the various traumas, and making sure that people feel comfortable, and that there's somewhere there who can speak to whatever their trauma looks like, and provide places where they can go to get help. But it's recognizing the trauma, not making a person feel different or unacceptable because of whatever the trauma is, but that just dealing with it head on and providing someone who can help them. And therapy certainly is a way, and just some honest discussions and some opportunities for sharing, and some space where people feel comfortable that it is space that is been made to be safe, that they know that that's a safe space, and that what they say is not going to be shared all around the world, that someone is serious about helping them and making sure that they receive the therapy or the help that they need. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to the trauma, because I think normalizing that trauma is real. There's generational trauma, there's layers of trauma, and all different kinds of trauma, right? In different spaces. Even just growing up in a community where you hear gunshots, it's similar to living in a war zone, right? And so that it affects our brain development, and it affects how we thrive. And so starting to normalize for people the conversation and creating those safe spaces, as you say, to embrace folks and help people heal from the trauma so that they can move forward and get past that. Not that it'll ever fully go away, but that we heal and can move forward. So thank you. Thank you for speaking to that. Cheyenne.
And I also wanted to talk about, I was going to say the same thing, conversation, discussion, and really not just about healing and with trauma, but just about anything, creating a safe space for the two generations to, to express themselves and not have it be seen as, weak, or, anything else negative, because it's not just, I don't know what it is, but it's that underlining thing where it's it's shame or it's humiliation that it stunts a person's growth, especially the young Black community. It stunts their growth where they don't feel like they could vocally express themselves as much as they should be, because we're so used to being stunted on a daily basis. So really finding a way to create that bridge between the caretaker and the one who's being taken care of, and to help them resolve, to help them build that bridge. Basically, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. All right. Okay, I'm gonna move on to our next question. We're coming towards the end. We have about 25 minutes left, and I do want to leave some space for questions. So for audience members that do have questions, maybe you can put questions in the chat. I think there's going to be an ask going out regarding questions. So we're going to go to number 5 for our panelists. So youth dealing with racism on a daily basis often feel fear of being targeted, a lack of safety, or may internalize negative messages they hear about themselves. How do you think racism impacts mental health? How do we support the healthy mental health development of our young people?
I would love to jump in on this one. There's a program that I actually created with my husband called the Healing Circle. And that was focused on youth because of all of the racism that existed between our youth, whether it was in our school system or what was in our daily lives. I think we don't have enough conversations about race, right? What conversations are going on within the school system about race and understanding of each other's cultures, each other's struggles, setbacks, and to go back to history, because I think it is really important to address and understand each other's history, to have acceptance. I'm not crazy about the word tolerance. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be accepted. And I think a lot of our youth are facing those issues. I know I saw it within our teen leadership program when a young lady asked, a young African-American, brilliant young girl asked a Latina sister, why do you call yourself a person of color? And she explained to her the similarities, right? And how society looks at us and approaches us. And that dialogue was really important. And when I talked to the youth, they said they want to be able to have the spaces to be able to understand that, or else we cannot possibly eliminate racism. But our young people are also facing racism from the system that they're in, right? This is not just racism that they're facing from their classmates or the people that they're dealing with. And so on a day-to-day basis, I often wonder, going into a school system where you can be suspended at a higher rate, where you can be arrested, where you can be harassed. And so they're dealing with racism that we have the opportunity and the ability to unravel and unpack with the proper training, with the proper accountability for our school system. I think that that is so important that we do start to infuse those practices more in the school system so that we can take a temperature and understand how we can move the needle forward. And mental health wise, I can tell you just from the youth that we've supported, they're getting the attacks about their race from what they're seeing on TV every day, what they're dealing with within their own backyards. And so it really is, I think, a systematic responsibility, as well as needs to be peer-to-peer education on race and discussions where they can have a safe space to be able to deal with race. So this is definitely something that we are really committed to. And I think it's we can get rid of the cancer early before it develops and goes into our systems.
Thank you.
You're next.
The one thing that I guess being the senior of the group here, I've been around this stuff a long time. Our system is geared for control, and African-American males have been controlled by a systematic system like this for centuries. As you can see on the program today, we talk about young African-American males, and the one that's really here is 81 years old. If we really want to deal with African-American males, we're going to have to get them into the mix to talk about it rather than talk about them. And so our system is not geared right now, and it has not been geared to truly develop African-American males and to be wholesome men moving into the society. You can look at the promotions of people in professional positions. You look at our political system, the African-American male is noticeably absent every place except the prison system, or in a negative sense. And we have to realize that and deal with it if we're going to address it to any effectiveness. And it can't be hidden and passed over in every conversation. We have to go after it. What are we going to do to uplift, to give equality, to actually make things on an equal scale. And that doesn't mean that some criticism doesn't go where it belongs. We have to bring people up, we have to put them, but we're going to have to make a conscientious effort to develop African-American males at this particular time. And that's why I don't really like the word people of color and all the other things. It takes away the individuality of the group you're talking about, who has its own specific problems and concerns. And I think that we need to really deal with those things as we try to find some solutions.
Great. Thank you. I agree with you. Thank you for that. Okay, so I want to, Cheyenne, I'm going to ask you to go next. But before that, I just want to give a shout out to folks who are commenting on social and calling out our speakers and, you know, just making this move outside of this Zoom call, but getting the messaging out there as well. I really appreciate all of that. I also encourage you all to put some questions in for our panel, put some questions in the chat, and so that we can get to some questions and answers as well. So moving on to Cheyenne. Go ahead.
I think that racism negatively impacts mental health. I think we all think that. I think that it takes up so much. It takes up so much room in your mind. You know, it's always a constant lingering threat to your survival, and so it triggers something where, you know, you're not able to thrive and live like how you should be. It's always that. Even for me, you know, it's like racism. If I didn't have to deal with it, I wouldn't be as, you know, scared even on the freeway, because I drive now. I'm a driver, and I love, to me, driving symbolizes freedom, you know, and I don't want to have to feel like it's a threat to get stopped over, even when, you know, I'm a rule follower. So even when I'm a rule follower, I have to face that threat. It makes a person anxious. And I feel like, you know, how so many other people's, what other people have said on this panel, you know, creating that space, and especially for them not to just talk about themselves, but to talk about the issues. You know, great minds think alike. And, you know, as we've seen in the past, you know, everybody, especially the Black youth, you know, I like Black males as well, but Black females as well, you know, just coming together when we build a community, you know, we cannot be stopped. It's true. So, and that's something that we try to incorporate into our programs during the inside of the Earth Lodge of Transformation. We try to, you know, bring people in and start the discussion, you know, not, especially during COVID, when, you know, depression is really running high, and, you know, and it's kind of, especially during school, you know, I had to graduate during COVID. So I didn't get to see my final peers, you know, walk down, you know, the way and, you know, get my diploma. It was mailed to me. So it's like, it's really disconcerting, and you feel a disconnect. So when everybody comes together, even if it's just on Zoom, you know, even, you know, quarantine friendly, it really does help a lot. And it really does take that when you are together in that sense, especially during my generation, it really does relieve some of the pain of racism. You know, we understand that it's there, but when you are surrounded by people who think just like you and who understand the problem and the corruption, it makes you feel like you're not alone, and it allows your mood to uplift a little. It allows you to feel a little more safe. So I do think that that's something we should help with our youth today, you know, especially for the future, you know, because they're only going to grow up, you know, and then it's just, you know, it's going to be amazing. So.
Are you sure you've never been on a panel before? She said this is her first time. I don't believe her. You're doing awesome.
I think she's kidding.
All right. I'm going to move us to the last question. And then I still don't see any questions coming in, but that's all right. So this one, I want to hear about some stories. So the last few questions have been focused on strategies and interventions, focused on emerging strategies. But please share with us some success stories from one of your programs, because we just want to hear what's happening.
I would love to talk about our program that we just completed through the CARES Act with Success and Challenges. We took 30 teens on a program where they received mental health support, mentorship, career mentorship, and they learned how to create a podcast with the support of a 30-year radio personality who walked them through the process of how to identify their topic, what's important to them. And at the end of the class, each one of them recorded their own podcast. It was only a 2-minute podcast, but 2 minutes is actually a long time, right? To speak for 2 minutes. And what was amazing about this program was that the teens tapped into their purpose. Their podcast was about justice reform, LGBTQ issues, their issues with their parents. They talked about the stock market. They talked about bullying and mental health. And so what was amazing about the program is that it was about them. It was about what they wanted to create, what they wanted to talk about and educate. And so it was incredible to end up completing that. And now they're recording PSAs for other teens that will be running on radio stations, 4 different radio stations around gun violence, COVID issues, and mental health. I think what's so important and what came out of this program also is that we personally are hiring 2 teens to lead our teen leadership programs. We think that it takes teens to reach teens. We don't get to tell teens what they need. And I think that if we arm our teens with the knowledge and education, and then we can allow them to take that back to other teens, I think that that's really what's going to work. So out of our program, we were able to refer some students to workforce, others to internships. Some are attending our next workshops to open up their own businesses. And it was really an incredible experience. And we were able to really partner up with different organizations and the city of Long Beach and LBCC, and Commissioner Herlinda came through for us to provide the kids with this program. We ended the program off with launching lbcteen.com in partnership with Success and Challenges, which allows us to provide teens with a space that we can connect all of your resources to those teens so that they can stay engaged again, and it's not a transactional thing. So thanks for allowing me to share that.
Thank you. So we'll move to Paula, because I think she has a follow-up with that, and then we'll move to Elijah.
Yeah, I want one comment on that, and then I wanted to talk quickly about a success from our Freedom School program. One of the most exciting things that as we ended that 3rd session of our workshops, none of the children, none of the youth, I won't call them children, but none of the youth wanted to leave. They all kept saying, "Can't this continue?" So one of the things that we really saw that to grow out of that was a need to be able to have a space for these young people to continue to connect and to receive resources, to receive information, and be able to share that with them. But our Freedom School program is the program that Success and Challenges has been doing for the past, well, this will be our 17th summer. It is a reading enrichment program that focuses on not so much learning to read, but on reading appreciation and learning your history, and an opportunity also for young people to work in the areas of social justice issues. We have many good success stories, but one in particular was a young girl, started out with us when she was 5 or 6 as a participant, and she moved on to a volunteer. We were able to track her through that. After she was a volunteer, she became an actual staff person, which we call them student leaders, and she worked in our program, and she was able to work with our youngest of children, our pre-A school kids. And I just kept hearing desire to read more about their history, to learn more about their history. They're actually asking to go to the library. They're asking to get books that are not 10 pages or 20 pages or with all pictures, but they want books that actually have information and stories about that they can read and follow. And so I think that's the thing that's kept us going with the Freedom School program. We've seen an increase from what parents are saying in attendance, school attendance, as well as their academic performance. There's a lot of relationships that have been managed and been able to build between parents and the school system, helping some of our parents learn how to navigate that system so that they can go and speak on their children's behalf. Children learning to navigate themselves and how to know that they have a voice and how to speak up. We take them through all kinds of opportunities to actually learn how to speak in public, how to be on a panel, how to share their voice with the community and their political representatives, because they don't vote, but so they have to get to the people through their parents to let them know that these are the issues that are important to youth and families and that their parents need to vote. So that's one of the things that we focus on. And then finally, our staff, the young people that we hire for the Freedom School program are college students and interns. And over the years, we've seen so many of them blossom and really come into their own in terms of what they want to do with their life and their career. And many of them have chosen to go into education and the field of working with youth in some kind of way, but it's just amazing to be able to watch the growth overall. So I just say, whatever you're doing, if it works, keep on doing it and learn how to expand it and involve more people.
Oh, wonderful. Mrs. Paula, if I could have the Freedom School at every event that I host or I go to with adults, I would do that, because those children, when they speak, the room is silent and it's
Yeah,
chilling. I love it.
Amazing. It's amazing. Thank you.
Elijah.
Yeah, so I want to share a picture, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this picture here. Can you see it? So this is a picture from one of our historically Black colleges and universities tours. When we're not in, the context of COVID, the Emoja program, at least once a year, but often twice a year, takes students to HBCUs, and all expenses are paid. And typically we do around 8 to 10 schools. We fly to typically either the Atlanta area if we're doing the Southeast, or we fly to the DC area if we're doing the Northeast. And our students have a transformative experience because LBCC typically is around 13% African American. We of course know that even with those demographics, we're the most disproportionately impacted group. But imagine taking a group of students, and this is just the men, but there were women on the trip as well, taking a group of students, a wide range of ages, a lot of the times out of the state for the first time, and then to universities that they've never seen before. And at those universities, there is example after example of our rich cultural heritage, and all around you is a sea of Black scholars. And our students come back invigorated. Everybody who I see on this picture has transferred. Some of them have graduated, and some of them did in fact attend HBCUs. I'm thinking of 2 of our students now. One of them went to an HBCU and then now works at Google. Another one of our students got a full ride to Jackson State, and then he's now attending Columbia for grad school. It's just a exciting opportunity for the students, and I feel like it's a transformative opportunity too. So I just wanted to share these young men with you.
Thank you for that. All right, so it's coming towards the end of our time together. I'm sad because I would love to continue this conversation. This has been an awesome just start to a conversation, and there's so much more. Eric, do you mind if I share your quote that you just shared with us? We have some cool stuff going on in the chat between the panelists. Can I share that? Yes.
Did you want me to share it? Or
So,
feel free to share it.
yeah, you share it. Could you share it? That's just great. Thank you.
I mean, I just dropped in the quote, you know, that if trauma is generational, it can be passed in our DNA, so is greatness and our resilience, right? So all our youth are kings and queens, and our job is just to help them see that greatness. And I think Cheyenne did a great job of that today. So thank you for being my teacher during this whole meeting. I feel blessed for all those gems you dropped. And part of what we need to do is just, you know, help our students visualize success, put themselves in the picture. So I want to thank everybody who's on this panel. So I feel like that's exactly what everybody's heart and minds is set out to do in this space.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm going to pass it on to Eli Romero. Eli is working with us in the city. I don't think he considers himself a youth, but he is a young person with a very old soul and a lot of wisdom to share. So he is wonderful to work with, and he's helped lead this effort for a while now. So I'm really proud of him and excited that he's a part of the team. So Eli, I'm going to pass it on to you to give closing remarks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And just to put into context, I've been working with the city or in collaboration with the city for over 10 years. Not a youth anymore, but I appreciate it. You still see me those young guys.
And you're not that old.
I did. Technically, I was a youth. Yes, I appreciate it. No, I just want to start off by thanking each and every one of you. I want to thank Vice Mayor Rex Richardson for really leading and championing this work for quite a long time, and it's now coming to fruition, and it's a beautiful thing to see from the one point where the youth fund seemed like a hoop dream and now it's becoming a reality. It's such a great thing to witness. I want to really thank Theresa, one, for sharing that beautiful story, tragic story actually, at the end, but I think the legacy is what could be beautiful. So continuing some of the work and learning about those lessons and working with all of you to ensure that things like that don't happen as frequently as they do. So thank you so much, Theresa, and thank you so much for leading this conversation. Reverend Dr. Aussie Wood, thank you. Paula Wood, Shirin Senegal, Cheyenne Wilkins, Lionel Gonzalez, Eric Becerra, Elijah Sims, thank you all so much for your time and your expertise and your wisdom. It's so appreciated. Thank you for guiding this conversation. It's important to note that this conversation is of utmost importance. One, as we course ramp up the Office of Youth Development and open that up, but also as we continue to live in that weird spot of the COVID-19 in our country's racial reckoning. We're starting to see a semblance of normalcy coming back, but at the same time, a lot of us are grappling with whether or not whatever is considered normal is what we want to go back to, right? There's research out there that shows that middle-class Black students are actually performing better online because less of, unfortunate, there's a word I don't want to use targeting, but there is an unfair treatment of Black students in traditional academic settings, and they're able to thrive online. Meanwhile, there's other young students that are falling behind. Unfortunately, during the COVID, there's also been a big surge of suicide amongst Black youth, and that's something that needs to be brought to the forefront and to the attention so we could all address that as a community, as a village. And before we wrap up, I want to read something a statement that we got from Councilmember Al Austin, who regrettably was not able to join us, but originally had planned to. It's like, I send my regrets as I am not able to join the conversation this evening. Speaking as a parent of 3 sons, a city council member, I am extremely supportive of emerging Black youth and their voice in our city. Their input, insight, involvement in our city is critical. I'd like to thank my city council colleague, Mr. Richardson, for his work on behalf of our North Long Beach community. Thank you to the Long Beach community, our many nonprofit partners, for their ongoing efforts and work in supporting our development of stronger youth. I am also deeply grateful to our faith leaders, youth sports organizations, the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club of Long Beach, 100 Black Men of Long Beach, our libraries, parks, and rec, for their dedication and continued support and emphasis on our youngest residents in Long Beach. Most importantly, I would like to salute all of the great parents, families, and neighbors who support the dreams and ambitions of our city's youth. Long Beach is community. We are all in this together, and I trust that you will have a productive dialogue today, which we just did. So there's some folks that did not get a chance to ask some questions, but please continue the conversation in the comments in either YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. We will respond to those throughout the course of the week. And I really thank everyone once again for joining. Thank you so much. Thanks, folks. And Harrison, that's a wrap.